Could a $348 Bitcoin investment back in 2009 actually have erased $37 trillion of US debt today? I know, it sounds unbelievable, right? Now imagine using XRP to actually wipe out the national debt. Now I couldn't even make this up if I had tried, and yet that's exactly this wild scenario that a TV host has just floated. Now stick with me here because this story takes some pretty wild twists and turns that you just don't want to miss. Now I've got to share this rather unbelievable journey that I just went on. It started with a news clip about our $37.8 trillion, and yes, that was trillion with a T, national debt, and somehow ended up with me rethinking my whole crypto strategy. Now, in the next few minutes, I'm going to take you through a personal adventure of mine that ties together a freak internet outage, a bold XRP theory, and even how I'm turning old smartphones into crypto mining machines. Crazy, I know, but by the end of this video, you're going to see exactly how those dots all connect. And hey, this isn't just another news recap here, no. It's how that news hit me personally and why it matters for you. So let's dive on in. So, picture this. I'm watching the news and the host starts talking about a major Amazon Web Services outage. Boring, right? I know, but not this time, because this AWS outage basically brought half of the internet to its knees. And I'm not even kidding. Apple's apps went down, Delta Airlines flights got delayed, Coinbase even froze up, and even Xbox stopped working briefly. So one glitchy line of code on a centralized server, and boom, it's chaos. Now, I'm just sitting there thinking, wow, our entire digital life can be knocked out by one tiny error. So if that doesn't scream fragile, I'm not sure what does. And apparently, I was not the only one thinking it. Right, this Newsmax host, Carl, actually jumped in with exactly where my mind was heading. This is why we need blockchains, he said. Blockchain is reliability through redundancy. Now that phrase, it kind of stuck with me here. Instead of one point of failure, you've got millions of computers, i.e. nodes, all keeping the records, right? So if one goes down, nothing is actually lost. No single switch to flip that can shut the whole entire thing off. It's like the difference between a single light bulb versus, well, the sun. You can turn off a light bulb, but you can't turn off the sun, right? Decentralization for the win, right? Now, here's a quick personal tangent because this whole redundancy idea is something that I've been, well, so excited about for a while that I literally put my own money where my mouth is. Now, I have been testing something called Unity nodes. Now, if you haven't heard about it, Unity basically lets you turn your phone into a part of a global decentralized telecoms network, and you earn crypto for it. Yes, right? I'm talking about using spare phones to bolster a network and getting paid in crypto like BTC, Ethereum, ADA, and even XRP for doing it. Now, it's kind of like crypto mining, but for helping secure a decentralized distributed mobile network. Now, I actually kind of brought up Unity Node NFT. I bought one a little while ago, which came with 200 licenses. So let's just imagine that as 200 mini node slots for a device, right? Now, to start kind of me hooking up, to start with, I'm going to be hooking up the 10 phones that you see on the desk over here when their app does go live, to see how it all works. And if it does work as promised, then I'm going to scale it up from there. Now, I've chosen to get my rewards paid out in a mixture of different assets, such as Bitcoin, Ethereum, ADA, and XRP, of course, because, hey, passive income is my favorite coins. Yes, please, I'll have some of that. Now, I'm not here to hype up this as the next big thing for everyone. Of course not. You should do your own research. Now, I've got Unity's light paper and rewards calculated linked in the description down below if you are curious. I've mentioned Unity in a whole bunch of previous videos, so the OG viewers, you already know the drill. The cool twist is that I snagged another Unity node so that I can lease out the licenses to you guys. That means that if someone out there is curious about Unity node but doesn't want to drop the cash on a full master node, well, you can essentially just rent a license from me and still participate. Right? I'm going to put more information on our website and, of course, in our free educational Discord server that's linked in the description down below. We've got a whole community there that's super into exploring all these kinds of projects together. So yeah, all right, that's a tangent over, but keep Unity in the back of your mind as an example of how decentralization is becoming real for regular people just like us. Let's get back to the story then. So after highlighting how centralized systems can fail big, our friend, our TV host, if you will, basically urges us to at least puts us into something a bit more interesting and intriguing, right? He goes on and he goes, what if the US Treasury had invested just $348 in Bitcoin back in 2009, right? I nearly did a double take. I mean, $348 into Bitcoin in a year which it launched. Well, now that would be worth $37.8 trillion, trillion with a T. Right? Now that is enough to wipe out the entire US national debt today. Of course, that money doesn't actually exist, it's theoretical, but you kind of get the idea. There's always some funny accounting going on in the background. Anyway, when I heard that, I had to pause the TV, literally hit pause and just sit there for a second. I mean, the talk about the ultimate missed opportunity, right? It's kind of like realizing that if you had bought one lottery ticket 15 years ago, you could probably own the planet by now, right? Obviously, hindsight is 2020, and no one could have known that Bitcoin would explode the way that it did. But man, the idea was pretty powerful. A tiny little investment turning into national savings fortune. Now, he wasn't saying, oh darn, we missed our chance, too bad. No, he actually took it to a next level. He basically said, what about XRP? XRP is around $2.40 as we speak today. And he floated this scenario. Imagine the government takes, let's say $1 trillion of its annual tax revenue and it throws it into XRP. Yes, that is a lot of money. But in government terms, it's actually a chunk of what they've actually moved around each year. Now, according to him, right, that kind of buy-in could skyrocket XRP's market cap and potentially multiply XRP's value by 8 times over, or maybe even more. I mean, it would be significantly more, to be fair. Now, in theory, that kind of turns $1 trillion into $8 trillion, an $8 trillion return, right? Enough to kind of put serious dent into the debt pile. But we already know that market cap math doesn't work as simple as that, right? Anyway, my eyes, of course, widened at this idea. An 8-fold jump is pretty huge, but we know it would be significantly more with that kind of capital inflow. And in crypto land, we all know that it's not impossible either for a coin to 8x with, barely any catalyst whatsoever. Still, of course, the idea of Uncle Sam being the catalyst, well, that's kind of a new one, isn't it? But wait, it does get wilder, right? Because he didn't stop at round 1, no. He actually casually suggested that the government could rinse and repeat this process. Buy XRP, pump the price, sell for a massive profit to knock down some of the debt, and then just do it again. Basically, he's suggesting pump and dump because obviously money isn't generated. It's only ever transferred. Basically, what he's suggesting is robbing everybody else to pay off the national debt, just doing it legally. Crazy, right? He literally said, and I quote, the government could dump it, crash the market, and buy it right back, and do it all over again, then pay off the national debt by Saturday. Basically, just steal from every regular, normal retail investor. Crazy, right? And he did that on live TV. So he says by Saturday. Now I'm imagining this like some kind of cheeky weekend kind of movie heist, or some kind of movie montage. The government has this kind of sneaky little trader deliberately crashing the market and scooping up cheap XRP over and over and over until, ta-da, no more debt, right? It's equal parts hilarious and just darn right criminal. I'm going to use the word. I'm going to throw it out there. And I mean, can you just picture the headlines, right? US government day trades XRP, eliminates national debt. They would, of course, admit the fact that it was on the backs of regular, normal people, right? Basically bankrupting the everyday retail investor to pay off the national debt. It's not even technically possible, but hey, I guess it makes great TV. It sounds like science fiction. That's probably because it actually is. And as a crypto enthusiast, I had obviously way more questions than answers at this point. Could it even work in reality? What would it actually do to the crypto markets? And of course, to people's trusts. And of course, legally, right? Could the government just manipulate the market like that? I mean, why stop at the crypto market? You might as well do the same to the stock market too, right? It's more liquid after all. It's a thought experiment for sure, and it's a pretty crazy one. And to be honest with you, I think it really is criminal. Now, before we go any further here, I do need to hit pause on the excitement, if that's what we want to call it, for just a second to put on my responsible hat here. Now, this might just shock you, but I'm not a financial advisor, and nothing in this video is financial advice. Cryptocurrencies are highly volatile, and you could lose all of the money that you invest. You should always do your own research and consult a qualified professional. After all, your investments are entirely your responsibility, and you should know that nothing is ever guaranteed when it comes to investing. Neither I, this channel, nor YouTube are liable for any losses, and this video is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Alright, so that's the disclaimer done, but seriously, right, that scenario that this guy laid out is pretty much financial entertainment at its finest, right? I mean, it's speculative, it's criminal, and it's definitely not advice. Right now, I doubt that the government is actually willing to basically completely wreck everything to do this, and they're not going to start day trading XRP. It's no way near liquid enough, right? Just imagine Congress on Coinbase, right? Just imagine it, craziness. But the fact that a mainstream media host is stupid enough to actually think that this is a talking point, it tells me something here. It tells me that crypto has actually hit the big leagues. This isn't just nerds on Reddit fantasizing. This is actually, people who are uneducated in economics that don't understand how the actual markets work on TV, right? In prime time discussions about the future of an economy that they can't even get the basics of Econ 101 down. So let's unpack it a bit more then, because it is rather fascinating that someone would say these things on live television, right? Why XRP? Why not Bitcoin? Well, XRP has a bit of a different use case. It is super fast and it is cheap to move, and it often is kind of pinched with a kind of bridge, or at least pitched as a bridge currency for international finance, right? I reckon it's probably more because there's actually a good community there, and it's probably one of the most widely talked about cryptocurrencies on the planet. Now, some people, especially the XRP fans, have long speculated that governments or banks might one day use XRP to move large amounts of money or settle debts, right? Now, we've got a TV pundit, basically suggesting, hey, US government, maybe you should become a whale in the XRP market. It's almost like the old saying, right? If you can't beat them, you should join them. Now, in fact, this guy, he referenced a classic kind of Ronald Reagan quote that made me chuckle for many reasons that I'm not going to talk about here. But, it kind of, if it moves, regulate it. If it stops, subsidize it. And if you can't do either, ban it. Now, that's usually how big institutions react to new things. So try to control it. If you can't, then try to kill it. But what this guy is basically saying is that blockchain offers a fourth option, doesn't it? If you can't beat it, you should become it. And then become part of the crypto revolution instead of just fighting against it. Now, that line kind of got me reflecting a bit, right? We've seen governments be very wary of crypto, talking about regulations, bans, you kind of name it. But here is someone who's essentially saying, what if the government just embraced crypto in a big way to solve a rather big problem? It's a total paradigm shift. Instead of printing money or raising taxes to borrow more, the usual tools, to handle debt, that is, well, the idea is just to leverage crypto's growth, which actually you don't need to do pump and dumps for, by the way. All you have to do is own the asset and then basically use it as collateral. But hey, Econ 101. Now, because one thing crypto has shown, I guess, is the potential for massive returns, right? High risk, sure, but where else have we seen 1000x gains in a decade? It's not in treasury bonds, that's for sure. Now, obviously, I do have to address the elephant in the room, right? The idea is just highly speculative. That's one way of putting it. And I would probably say it's highly stupid, criminal, and just a whole bunch of other words that actually fit this whole idea. Now, this guy, he knows it. I know it. And even you guys know it, right? There are plenty of reasons that this will not work, right? There simply isn't an unlimited amount of money. You don't make money in any market. Money is only ever transferred between the participants. So to get to $37.7 trillion, you actually need to have $37.7 trillion of cash. The market cap, that's not cash. That's not liquid. That's theoretical. Those are theoretical numbers. They don't exist, right? The market cap, or the actual liquid amount of money in crypto, is significantly smaller. Now, for one, pouring $1 trillion into XRP would skyrocket the price to the moon. But dumping $1 trillion worth of XRP would also send it crashing back to Earth, right? Now, we already know that there's multipliers effects. We saw 1,000x multiplier from dollars in to market cap on XRP during the crash, right? $100 million came on in, and yet we added $1 billion to the market cap. It's crazy. So it's important to understand that market cap doesn't represent the liquidity. And if you put $1 trillion of liquidity in, the market cap would shoot up into quadrillions and then crash all the way back down. You're not making any money here, right? Got to understand how the markets work. Now, markets are not magic ATMs. They react. So if the government did, this, even just once, it would probably work only the once if done stealthily or in a very controlled way. Otherwise, everyone would front run our panic sell alongside them, right? Now, they wouldn't make any money either, because dumping it in lifts it up, and then dumping it back down, or withdrawing it basically comes out. You're going to make maybe $1 to $2 billion. Maybe at most you might make 10 billion if you completely take out the majority of the liquidity. But it just isn't going to work in practice, right? It's a thought experiment, makes great TV, but it's not realistic. So if the US government started openly manipulating crypto markets, well, it could basically make everyone not want to even go anywhere near it. Why would you, right? You'll basically know that the US government is just stealing your money, and you don't want that. So why would you even bother playing the game? It could spook a whole lot of investors or invite really heavy backlash. It's the kind of maneuver that might only work the single once time, and you would extract all of the liquidity and it would be done. It would be dead. Everything would be dead. So no, I'm not saying this will happen or even this should happen. I think this is criminal, as I've mentioned before. But as a thought experiment and for TV, I'm sure it's electrifying, right? Because it shows how far we have come, and to think that there are so many people talking about crypto who don't truly understand how it works. That means that mainstream adoption has been working in the background all along. Now, it's not just magic internet money anymore, is it? Right? People are literally considering it as a part of a national strategy. That sounds pretty far-fetched. And this guy, he isn't alone in thinking along these lines either, because earlier in this year, a crypto analyst named Matthew from Van Eyck made waves by suggesting something similar with Bitcoin. He said Bitcoin's growth could potentially help the government wipe out $14 trillion in debt. Now, it's not the whole 37 trillion, but hey, $14 trillion is nothing to sneeze at. The fact that serious people are actually, at least folk in investment firms, I should say, and for good or for worse, TV hosts, and probably a whole lot of regular people in finance are entertaining these ideas. It means that crypto is firmly on the radar of the powers that be. Now, they're starting to see it as a tool, maybe even a lifeline, and not just as toys for traders. Okay, let's zoom out and take a look at the bigger picture for a second. The US national debt is astronomical, and it is growing. Every few months we hear about raising the debt ceiling, the government shutdown threats, and all of that drama. Now, traditionally, how do we deal with it? Well, we print more money, hello inflation. Issuing more bonds or cutting spending rarely happens, of course. Now, these are the old playbooks. But what crypto represents is a kind of reset button of sorts, at least in certain people's views. Now, he also talked about crypto helping the US reset the system. I mean, we've all heard the Great Reset before, right? So, and of course, they get to reclaim some of their economic independence. That's a rather strong statement. It implies that the way that things run now is not sustainable, which is listed a lot how a lot of us kind of feel, and it is kind of true to a point. And something radical like digital assets could be a way out of the hamster wheel of debt. However, well, I should say it's not realistic, is it? You're just going to rob regular people. Now, whether or not that this happens, and it is true, only time will tell. But here is how I, of course, see it. Even if governments never do this, it speaks to the power of crypto investments over time. The fact that $348 in Bitcoin could theoretically become $37 trillion after 15 plus years is a testament to what early adoption can do. Now, I am going to just pause this for a moment here because we do have to obviously talk about that second elephant that is in the room. $348 in Bitcoin theoretically becomes $37 trillion, right? But Bitcoin's market cap is not $37 trillion. There is not $37 trillion of liquidity. Okay, and it's important to understand that $348, is what you would have theoretically put into Bitcoin, right? And where does all the extra money come from? It comes from other investors. You don't make money. Money doesn't just materialize out of thin air, right? There's nothing magical about this. Money only transfers between people. So if you paid $348 for Bitcoin in 2009 and you try to sell it today, well, you're taking money from every other investor that is in the game, right? It's sum zero. There are winners and there are losers. This is why I hate meme coin markets, because 99.9% of people lose money and only the 0.1% of people make the money, i.e. the people who are rugging everybody else. And that's essentially what this guy is suggesting happens here with the US government, basically suggesting that the US government can just go ahead and rug the entire crypto market, which it can't do anyway. It will never clear its debt because there's not that much money in the market in the first place. The whole idea is kind of just idiotic, but I did have to obviously talk about it here on the video because it's making its waves again across social media, and I have to kind of set the scene and I have to kind of set the record straight. So let's get back into what I've written, and yeah, let's progress through this video. And while, of course, we probably won't ever see any gains of the magnitude from today forwards, I mean, I can only dream and, of course, hope that it's all realistic in the sense of we could see $37 trillion in, true liquidity for a single investment. It does, of course, reinforce why I personally keep accumulating crypto, though, because if there's even a sliver of a chance that crypto, there's some of the cryptos that I believe in could 5x, 10x in the future, then I'm going to want to be on that train, not watching it from the train station. And I hope that the government never really gets involved. Now, I do want to bring this back to, at least down to our own level here, you and me, right? Individual crypto enthusiasts. Because we might not be able to single-handedly wipe out national debt. In fact, I think the only way you're going to do that is by real-world asset tokenization and basically robbing all of that too, because there's just no way you're going to do it, right? And I don't think people really truly understand the difference between market cap and liquidity. If you don't, join the free Discord and we'll happily show you how it all works. But what we can definitely do is borrow some strategies from some of these ideas to help ourselves out, right? For example, the scenario basically here involves having a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C, right? Now, what this guy on TV was describing was a plan where if one move doesn't finish the job, you just do another one and another one, right? Rinse and repeat is what he said. Now, in our world, that translates to hedging and preparing. Now, one thing that I do here, and I encourage other people to consider, is to never put all of your eggs in a single basket, especially when it comes to crypto exchanges and platforms. Remember, that AWS outage that I mentioned earlier, it knocked Coinbase offline for a bit. So imagine if that was the day when you really needed to sell or move assets and you only had a Coinbase account, where you would be stuck, right? Well, that's why I've made a point to sign up for and test out as many different crypto exchanges as possible. I keep several options handy. If exchange A goes down, I've got exchange B, C, and D, right? And it's like having multiple exits in a movie theater just in case. Now, on my website, linked in the description below, I actually list out all of the exchanges that I use regularly. You'll see familiar names like Blowfin, BitGet, LBank, Kraken, and so forth, and a whole bunch of others there that I do trust. Now, these are platforms that I have KYC'd on and done small test trades on too, so that I know that they all work. And yes, quick transparency moment. And those links on my website are affiliate links. So if you do use them, it doesn't cost you anything extra, but it can provide a little kickback to support the channel's content here. It's kind of how I keep going with what I do. And, affiliate or not, the core message still stands. Consider having multiple exchange accounts and backup plans. The last thing that you want is to be locked out of your assets just because one company had an outage or, knock on wood, becomes insolvent. Now, speaking of exchanges and stacking crypto, I want to share a limited time tip that also ties into accumulating XRP, which after this talk, I suspect you might be interested in. Now, I've actually kind of partnered up with Kraken's crypto exchange to help some of you score a bit more XRP completely for free. So here is the deal. If you sign up using my Kraken link that is on my website, but also just down in the description below, it's one of the first links you'll see, and trade $100 or more of any cryptocurrency asset, just not stable coins, within 30 days of opening your account, well, Kraken will give you $25 of XRP as a bonus. Yeah, free XRP basically. Well, you do have to make a trade, of course, but if you were going to invest anyway, this is like a cherry on top, right? Now, this promo is for a limited time only. So if you've been on the fence about getting into Kraken or, you want that extra XRP, now is pretty much a good time. Plus, even beyond the bonus, Kraken is another solid exchange to have in your arsenal. As I mentioned, right, preparing for the next bull run means getting your account set up before you actually need them. So even if you mainly use, say Binance or Coinbase right now, it doesn't hurt to have Kraken, BitGet or Blowfin, LBank and others as a backup plan ready to go. And if Kraken's giving you $25 in XRP to try them out, well, why not? All the details and the sign-up links are in the description down below. Again, they're affiliate links, so they do help support the channel via the affiliate program and are also on the website and in the description below. And of course, you need to check all of the terms and conditions, right? Because, not every jurisdiction is available and is eligible. So just know the rules. Like you have 30 days to make a $100 trade, for example, and the offer is for new signups only. Now that kind of sort of stuff. So do read the terms and conditions. All right, let's take a breather and recap this roller coaster that we've been on. We went from a single line of bad code crashing half of the internet to the idea of decentralized networks like blockchain being the antidote, which I agree to a seriously bold, idiotic notion that the US could leverage crypto, especially XRP, to solve a multi-trillion-dollar problem, and we all know that that's just absolutely dumb. Anyway, along the way, I shared how I'm personally experimenting with the decentralization of the telecoms area, basically helping verify things with Unity nodes. And of course, how I'm preparing for anything by diversifying, my crypto platforms and even snagging some more promo deals like the Kraken XRP offer. Now, why does this all matter? Well, it's because it paints a picture of crypto's landscape today, doesn't it? Right? Big and small, right? On the big side, crypto is now part of a national conversation, even though it's not necessarily the smartest thing that someone would have said on live television. A potential tool for, giant economic issues, which I disagree with completely. And on the small side, of course, you've got people like us, who are finding new ways to integrate crypto into our daily lives and strategies, whether it's earning passively, staying safe with backups, or taking advantage of opportunities. Here's my takeaway from this wild ride today. Never underestimate what crypto could do, right? It might not literally pay off all of America's debt overnight. In fact, I doubt it would do any of that in the way that it's been described today. That would be a massive plot twist and basically one of the biggest, criminal activities to humankind, right? It'd be crazy. But the fact that we're even talking about it means something. It means that the tension's happening at the top levels. It means that crypto potentially is becoming more enormous than maybe a lot of people thought. It does mean that those of us accumulating and learning and experimenting right now are pioneers, on the frontier of finance, or even, governments might end up, following our lead here, or at least watching more closely. And it also means that we need to stay quite savvy, because where there's big opportunity, there's big risk, right? And we need to navigate it smartly, right? I find it inspiring. And honestly, I got into crypto because it offered hope of a better financial future. And stories like this will amplify hope to a degree, but it'll also give us a huger dose of caution, even if it sounds a bit crazy at first. Now, I'm curious, what do you think? Is the idea of using XRP or any crypto to wipe out national debt genius or just completely idiotic? You know where I sit on that one, right? Would it work? Probably not. In fact, I would say with 100% certainty, it would not work. It would backfire spectacularly. And of course, there would be outrage as the US government rugged the entire crypto market to just get a handful of a couple of $1 billion. Now, let me know in the comments below, because I would like to hear what your perspectives are on this. Do you think that this is realistic? Do you think it's possible? Do you think it's not? And maybe there's even better ideas of how the government could leverage crypto, such as buying it, hoarding it, never selling it, and then using it as collateral. That would potentially be better. Or maybe you think that they should just stay away, right? Let's get the conversation going. So let us know in the comments or down in the Discord server. Now, with all that said, we're coming full circle on our adventure here, from the AWS outage to Unity nodes to $1 trillion XRP trades. What a time to be alive in crypto, huh? If you found this useful and informative, you can do me a favor by smashing the like button, hitting the subscribe, and catch you all in the next one.